Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Orange Bloods Modcast here on Orange Bloods Live. I'm Jeff Ketchum, joined by Alex Dunlap, Anwar Richardson, no Jason Sukamel today. I forgot what he said he had to do, but something happened, I think, family-wise. And what do? You shrug your shoulders.
No, he's in San Antonio. He's covering the game.
Covering the army.
Or there's a football event that he's at. It's like one of those two things.
It's not family related. He's literally working.
Well, I'm used to family excuses. Maybe because it's me. It's like I've always got a sick kid or a sick wife or a doctor's appointment or something. This exhilarating edition of the Modcast here on Orange Bloods Live, brought to you by Daily in Black. They get it right more than I do. All in, all the time for you. If you need to go get the bad guys in terms of storm damage, it happens all the time. They win lawsuits. They are Houston's best. They are the state of Texas's best. Reach out to Daily in Black, a massive supporter of UT Athletics. They raised in our initial NIL fundraiser for baseball like over $40,000. So like if you need help, let them help you. It just does a whole lot of good. It keeps it in the family. It supports somebody that supports UT. And there you go. That's why they're with us. Fellas, football game, 72 hours away-ish, right? We're 3 days away. I was thinking about next year's team, guys, because I think there's Anwar, just hang in there. We'll do the best we can. And I'll come to you first in the event that we lose you soon. I feel like we look at Sark's teams and always think that the best teams, and Alex, will just be you and I guess. You know, it's like, oh, well, Arch hasn't taken over yet. And all of these great recruiting classes haven't hit their upper class years. So there's this sense that like Texas is in the Final Four right now, and they were in the Final Four a year ago. But I think there's this idea that Steve Sarkisian's best teams, his best national championship caliber teams might be in future years. And I was thinking about it today, and I was like, man, if they don't find a way to get some better additions in the portal, are we sure that next year's team will be better than this year's team? And I just started like thinking about it in my head, and I was like, you know what? Texas just needs to win the damn national championship right now and like not leave anything to risk. They're so close. Opportunities like this are so hard to come by that I look at Friday's game. I'm starting to think of it as, man, it's must win. There is no, they'll be number one in the country next year with Arch, Alex. It's do it now and then make yourself a made man forever. And it just changes, I think, who you are as a football program forever.
I mean, clearly, I agree with that. It's like we've talked about it before, but you never know how you never know how long these championship windows are open, right? You just don't. And right now, the thing's wide open. You find yourself for the second year in a row in the Final Four. As much as the media wanted to make Ohio State seem like an insurmountable, task as far as taking those guys down, it's like, I mean, come on. It's like we talked. These were the two teams that we talked about before the season that looked like, two of the people legitimate. I mean, we had legitimate discussions like, are these the two best rosters in college football? There's certainly two of the most expensive. Like, we were kind of comparing and contrasting. I think the general consensus was that Ohio State, had, just overall, as far as just the total star power, was probably the best roster in college football, but it was a legitimate discussion. And since what we've seen is, we've seen like kind of a Jekyll and Hyde team from Ohio State. They just happen to be in buzzsaw mode right now. So yeah, I think yes, you get here to the footstep, and if you were to lose, clearly it's bad. You don't want that to happen. You're right here. You're right on the precipice. With that being said, I will say, I mean, Catch, after last season, whenever it wasn't like Texas was without losses last year. It feels like the two things that, offensively that were most important to come back were clearly just basically the entire offensive line, except for Cam Williams, who'd actually had starts anyway, and that we kind of knew would probably be better than Christian Jones, right? And then Quinn Ewers. That's massive, right? To have those two things coming back. And I can understand you saying that next year it could be too much to overcome to just expect them to just start out number one and roll through it and get to the very end, right? With that being said, I mean, we said we've at this point last year, do you think we would be talking about
Yes.
Alfred Collins and Broughton and like all those guys kind of being good and not being?
Well, no, this time last year we absolutely thought that this year's team would probably be better and a more serious national championship. You think about, because last year's team, it was like, oh, they got in. And then when they lost to Washington and when it was over with, it felt like an opportunity, but it also felt like they weren't the best team. Because Michigan, it was their year. And so it felt like Texas was a participation trophy team in the playoff. This year, this is a program that came into the season with a goal of the minimum bar is semifinals. We have to get back and be better than that because I think there's an expectation. Quinn's a year older. You know, you've got some young guys that are a year older. Kelvin Banks is in his peak and prime, but like to your point, there were legitimate questions. It felt like if these don't get answered, this team's not winning shit. So they've got to get this, but I guess where this, you know,
or if they weren't just going to reinvent themselves, like that secondary, it reinvented itself. It like that was like alchemy. It came from out of nowhere.
But you saw that coming a year ago. Like you knew that okay, Malik Muhammad's there, and Derek Williams is there, and Jelani McDonald is there, and they recruited so well in the secondary. As terrible as they were a year ago, there was a sense that group should be better because at some point. You're going to have a bunch of national top 50 guys all on the field. And, you know, John A. Barrett ends up, I think, just elevating himself into a level of player that had not previously existed. Look, where this all comes from for me, Alex, is that, and how much have you had a chance to look at Travis Shaw since he committed? Have you watched him at all?
Yeah, I mean, I talked about him a lot yesterday on my show. I watched I watched the whole Fenway Bowl. And then I watched some spring game stuff, and I watched all of his high school camp stuff.
What was your takeaway? Like the biggest takeaway was what?
He needs to move his feet better whenever he's engaged. He just like there's some things about him. You look at me like, God, man, can he bottle that up and just bring that on every snap? But he doesn't. And I watched I wanted to watch the last game that he played, right? Just to see like, okay, this game was played like 3 weeks ago. So we can't say, oh, hasn't developed, you know, he's developed since then, whatever. And there were 2 plays in that game versus UConn where you just look at it and you're like, oh, okay. I see what we're working with here. This guy can play. And then there are others where his pad level's too high. He stands up, plays patty cake, doesn't move his feet when he's engaged, and generally looks like an on-off switch type of player. So I think that he's the kind of guy where if you were to only base it on his camp reps from like the rivals camps and stuff like that, whenever he was a high school recruit, you would say Texas is getting an absolute hellraiser here. I mean, the upside is through the roof. So I would say that we're seeing flashes of it. I do think he's one of these guys where they're going to need to just kind of wrap their arms around him and get him to really buy in and take the coaching, because some of the things just bubbling right underneath the surface that kind of come up to the surface every now and then they're extremely good, right? Just not much consistency, which, dude, catch it's kind of been a theme of Texas defensive linemen. You know, this last year, what do we want from Alfred Collins coming into this season? We wanted more of the flashes, more of the consistency, right? We didn't want it to be, you know, 1 play on, 6 plays off and stuff. And I think that Kenny Baker's proven that he can, you know, I think him and Becton and just all these guys, you know, I think the combination of them, they've proven they can take these dudes, and if you really pour into them, you can get them to play more consistently. Development is what they've talked about in this program. But I will say, I don't think he comes in and he's an automatic starter. I think at first he's going to have to be kind of like a Bill Norton type. And as you go through the season, I would think if you start to see more and more of those flashes, like we saw on just a couple of rare occasions in the Fenway Bowl, I think that he's the type of guy that has the upside that he could be your best defensive tackle if he puts it all together. It's just a matter of whether or not he can do it.
This conversation that I'm just the hypothetical, and we do hypotheticals on Orange Bloods Live. It started yesterday. Anwar and I were just having this conversation, and it's like, God, man, you start thinking about the guys in the portal that made plays, big plays, like important players that made big plays in that playoff game. And like 5 legit stars on this team going into the game on Friday, I think are guys from the portal, right? It starts with Quinn. I think we sometimes forget, that guy was a portal guy.
Yeah.
And you start going through like, well, if Isaiah Bond is healthy, and then, you go Matthew Golden, look at what he is now. And I think Trey Moore has finally turned into an impactful, like he's one of the best players on the defense, and God, you hope he comes back next year. And then obviously Andrew Makuba, like that guy's Mr. Big Game. And
Bolden punt return.
Like, I'm not even including Bolden in like, because if we wanted to just continue, you could go Bolden, you could go Norton, you could go Lole. Like, this is a team that really does have a lot of contributors from the portal that are like every day. Like, if you don't have them, they're a different team. And it's funny because nobody's out recruiting Sark and Georgia. They're like in this Ohio State. They're in this rarefied air. But one of the things that Anwar and I started to scratch the surface on yesterday is it seems pretty clear right now that this year's portal class for the 2025 team isn't going to be as good as what this time last year. We were already talking about Matthew Golden and Makuba and Trey Moore. And like, you were like, this portal class, like it could be really good. It doesn't feel like this portal class is going to be as good. And it really dawned on me by watching Travis Shaw. I'm like, yeah, that's your Bill Norton for next year. And at best, maybe he's Keandre Coburn. I'm not sure. Like, he's got a ways to go, but he's got an upside.
Yeah.
But then I realized, is he the best? Is it? I know you and I love the Spence kid, so he's probably the best, but he's not, I think, a guy that we absolutely think of as a knocked on, nailed on starter. So, Anwar, I'll come to you. I'll introduce you to the conversation like this. I'm just wondering, for a program that we always think next year they're definitely going to be better, and apologies for us kind of continuing a conversation that we dabbled with yesterday. Is this the best chance for sure that Texas is in the semifinals? It feels like this is a lot more of this is the moment. More than, there's going to be a bunch of these moments. And if you get it now, cool. But Arch is coming up and like, don't sweat it if you don't. It feels the magnitude really is kicking in for me 3 days to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, Catch is, you're 2 wins away. So, I mean, you can't, you can never just say like, yeah, like you can never just check a box and guarantee and like, we'll be back next year. No problem. Like, things happen, injuries happen. And, every year, as Alice was saying, he was talking about the development and portion of it and Kenny Baker and things to that effect. Right. But you can't bank on that every year, right? You can't bank on Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton and then them having another batch next year that's going to be just as good as those guys. Like, you can't just every year say for sure, because next year will have its own set of question marks, right? It's going to be who's going to be the guys at least on the interior that are going to help out. You'll be, maybe some questions as far as the secondary, not a ton, but, you'll still maybe have some guys that are going to replace there. The running back room will be a huge question going into next year. We'll see how many guys they lose at the receiver position. You've got to find someone who can replace Gunnar Helm. And, you got fortunate. You're like, oh, this guy, you had Sanders and then there's Helm, but then, okay, is it going to be, are we at plug and play? Well, I don't know for sure. So right now, this is major because, to your point, Catch, what they're getting in the transfer portal, the hope was, hey, as more teams start to lose in the playoffs, you will see who goes in the portal off those teams. And then what you saw is that the team, when these playoff teams have lost and they've had that 5-day window, really hasn't been anybody that's gone in. I mean, and so now you're only talking about Penn State, Ohio State, Notre Dame, like that would be kind of what's left of new crop that could come in. You would really have to be hoping to get some guys in the spring if you really are hoping to kind of reload. So to your point, probably kind of is what it is at this point. We're maybe getting a guy in the spring or something like that. So yeah, you're 2 wins away. You're facing Ohio State. You're in the state of Texas. I mean, hell, with the way the snow is coming in, you may not have Ohio State fans that can fly into DFW on Thursday. So, you might have, have even more of a home field advantage. But yeah, this is that, you've got your 3-year starter at quarterback. You've got the defensive camaraderie that you want. Like this is, and you're literally down the road in Dallas. It's a huge opportunity, because just to say and assume it's going to happen next year, that's a bridge too far. You can't.
If we're playing Let's Make a Deal, and I'm Wayne Brady, and you're there, and you're dressed like Prince, and the Wind Doves Cry video.
Was Wayne Brady the host of Let's Make a Deal? Yeah. I guess maybe some iteration of it. Okay.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's been a million hosts of Let's Make a Deal. But
okay.
Wayne Brady took it over and absolutely made it his.
Okay.
And you're a beautiful singer, by the way.
Wayne Brady,
a beautiful singer.
Okay.
Yes, Wayne Brady.
And what you always want what you can't see. So it's like here's curtain number 1, and it's like a dining room table set, and you're like, I didn't come to Let's Make a Deal to walk away with a new dining, but I could use a dining room set. And they're like, do you want to take what's behind door number 2? Which you're like, that's the car. They give away a car in every episode, and that's it. And then, but it could be a goat, right? This is the dining room set. You're not trading this in for the shot in the future. And I think that is a real reality check for Texas. They're not necessarily the 92 Dallas Cowboys, where it's like, they don't win this one, they'll be back 3 more times or something like that. Like, these things are really hard to do. Texas is back where they were a year ago again. I think I really believe there's much more of an urgency, or at least it should exist. Because I think that's the one thing Ohio State has. There's like an urgency to them. Even a week ago, it was like, if you don't win, your coach might get fired. And that's not, there's not that pressure at Texas, either on the coaching staff or the team. Maybe that played a role in kind of the Ohio State that we saw last week, because we had a super chat earlier, and let me just pull this in real quick. Justin said, seems like they're making Ohio State versus Texas like UT versus USC in the 05 national championship game, saying USC is the best and no one can beat them. But now it's Ohio State is the best. UT doesn't have a chance. Justin, nobody's saying that. Like, seriously, I promise. But Ohio State's been legitimately great in the last 2 weeks. Like, legitimately great.
Scary. Yeah.
They've played their best 2 footballs in the 2 biggest games of their season against arguably the 2 best teams they played all season. And they were fantastic, and Texas wasn't. Texas was okay. They were good against Clemson, whatever that Arizona State game is, we want to call it. Nobody's saying that Ohio State can't be beaten. What everybody is saying is that Ohio State just mauled the number 1 team in the country, and they're playing the best brand of football of any of the teams that are still left. Don't get in your feels, Justin. I promise you. Like, nobody's – because if you look at the ESPN crawl, Anwar, it says like the FPI index has Texas as a 51% favorite. It's a 4.5, 5.5. I mean, it's a fourth quarter game. This is what we're looking at. And both of these teams have a chance. To me, this is the national championship game. So, I don't know. I think the closer this game gets, there's a feeling that exists that didn't exist a year ago with Washington. Last year when Washington rolled around, I was like, cool. Playoff games. It's kind of nice to be involved in this. And on Friday, it's like, Jesus Christ, if you win, you're going to probably be the national champion. And you completely change your lot in life forever. You know what you don't ever have to hear again when you win a national championship is Texas back. Like, that'll never be said again. And it's like, even now, people will make that joke. Is Texas really back? Like, the reality of the moment is starting to sink in. And it's just massive. And I wonder what that's doing to the players this week. Because this is really the game that they all came back for. This is the game I think they would have thought to themselves, we have to get back to in order for this season to be a success. So now they're back in this Washington game moment a year ago when they were knocking on the doorsteps of playing Michigan in the national championship game. I just wonder what the thirst level is like. Because I think it's got to be different this week than it was a week ago, even though playoff game's a playoff game.
But the thirst level's got to be thirstier because most people aren't giving Texas a chance to win. So I think that's one of the things they talked about. I think it was Kelvin Banks and everybody. Like they've talked about, like, hey, they understand that they're being counted out. They understand that they're being doubted. And
these narratives.
Yeah, and they haven't had. Look, it's been
the first time they've been. It's the first time they've had the opportunity to deploy this tactic.
Yeah, I mean they haven't been the underdog in a long time.
Is it Alabama's the last time?
Yes, going into Tuscaloosa, that's the last time they've had to do the underdog role.
Us against the world.
And no one believes in you. It's been a long time since Sark can play some cut up. Some people saying, hey, Texas is going to get blown out. Like that hasn't happened in another year. So,
well, and that's what Ohio State got to be last week.
Yeah.
They got to be, everybody thinks Oregon's going to beat us. Everybody's saying we're trash because Michigan kicked us upside the head. Like, they've been able to ride the wave of perky underdog Ohio State for the last couple of weeks. And now they are getting fed the Bill Parcells cheese. It is, crown them. Where's the anointing oil? Look how good they've looked. I think it's fascinating.
But if you're Texas, though, you can't be mad at that, though.
No,
because here's the
weaponize it.
Well, yeah, but there's also some truth to it, right? Not that Texas is going to get blown out or maybe to lose, but look, third quarter Texas has been a problem for the past several weeks. Like, we can't ignore that when the third quarter rolls around, this team, for whatever reasons, just disappears. Like it just disappears, and you got to wait for the fourth quarter for this team to come back and get back on the rails. We can't ignore that. They tried to run the ball against Arizona State. They couldn't do it. They tried to run the ball against Georgia. Couldn't do it. Now, Clemson happened. So that they can potentially do it. But can they run the ball effectively against Ohio State? We don't know that. And then we also know this, kind of what you and I alluded to yesterday. If you're Sark and let's say it's a 42-yard field goal attempt, what do? You got to, from a play calling perspective, 42, 43, 44, 45. He's got it now in my head. Do I really have the faith and confidence to go for it? Or now do I got to dial up some fourth down plays? So there are some things. It's a great season, don't get me wrong, but there are some reasons, if you're from a Texas perspective, to say, the offense does kind of go into some lulls, and I don't know.
You sound like me, Anwar.
No, God, I don't want to ever be there. So, but
you sound like a mini me, or maybe, I don't know, you're taller than me. So what would be the opposite of a mini me? You're a larger, taller me, but look, man, I get it. It doesn't
mean it's not a good season. It's a good season. It's a successful season. But now we're talking about, okay, Ohio State. It's not just, oh man, they doubting us because they text us and they hate us. No, there's some things that have happened throughout the season over the past few weeks that you get it and you can understand it. Now, these are things that Texas has to overcome. Now, I'm not saying they can't do it because we've seen them put together complete games before. But if you're wondering, hey, why will people go with Ohio State over Texas? Well, these would be some of the reasons why.
Totally fair. But for the first 14 weeks of this season, nobody thought Ohio State was a discernibly better team than Texas. That is not how we've talked about these two teams all season long. There have been times when it looked like they might be 1-2, and it was like, oh man, these teams could be on a course of destiny to face each other. We've seen them lose games and fall back a little bit. But all season long, Ohio State and Texas have essentially been viewed as similar teams. A national championship contender that's a little bit flawed week in and week out. They don't play their best football. You wouldn't say one was absolutely definitively better than the other until a week ago. And I think the only thing that I'm saying is, Anwar, you're right about all that shit, man. Because we literally in the modcast last week were like, hey, do we think Texas is going to have a 30-minute lull on offense? And every single one of us went, probably. So we're not getting the best version of this Texas team, whatever it is, the best iteration of it. It's not coming into this Ohio State game playing at the exact same level that Ohio State has just caught fire. All I'm saying is, for most of this season, Ohio State's been a lot like Georgia. And what happened a week ago was Ohio State did to Oregon what Georgia did to Texas. And so we came out of it going, Jesus Christ, man. When we saw Georgia play the first time in Austin, it was like, oh. So that's what it looks like when Georgia gets mad and motivated. And we're like, well, no, probably nobody beats that team. They did it against Texas again, and it's just like, oh, man, if styles make fights, maybe Georgia is just Texas's Huckleberry in a bad way. But I don't think Ohio State from a week ago that beats Oregon is the Ohio State that Texas gets this week any more than the next week Georgia was able to carry that Texas performance over into its next couple of performances. It just didn't. It was like, we know what they can do because they have shown us, and maybe that's more than Texas. But Alex –
but by the way, just don't forget, before that, they beat the crap out of Tennessee. So
but less than a month ago, they got embarrassed at home.
Yeah, but listen, and the Michigan loss happened, but the last
at home with what seemed like their season a little bit on the line, like that was Big Ten championship. That was a chance to be the number 1 seed. That was for every guy on that Ohio State team, especially the upperclassmen, the seniors. Think about how 33 reacted when they planted the flag. It was like, oh my God, a crime has been committed. Those dudes lost again. Those dudes are going to retire from Ohio State, having never beaten Michigan. That game really mattered, and they got punked. All I'm saying is, both of these teams have lost in the last month. Neither of them is so good that I think they're truly a favorite in this game. That's the only thing I'm saying.
Well, I'm just saying that just slightly for the Ohio State side, they kind of slapped around Tennessee and then followed it up with slapping around Oregon. That's the only.
Yeah, but Tennessee's just okay. I think Tennessee and Clemson are.
Arizona
comparable.
State is just okay too.
Arizona State is just okay. You're not wrong about that. That is the elephant in the room. Is these two teams last weekend, one was clearly better than the other. And if someone wants to come away from that and say, look, based on what I saw. Recency bias last week, 4 days ago, Ohio State is better than Texas. And that's why they're like a 4.5, 5-point favorite. I get that. All I'm saying is, if we take the overall body of work that these two teams have done, these two teams are eerily similar. Eerily. They both have dominant defenses, and from week to week, they show up on offense, and it's like, I don't know. And that's kind of who they've been. The same Ohio State team that drubs Oregon struggles with not just Michigan at home. Nebraska almost beat them at home. Like, all I'm saying is Ohio State's got a chin that you can hit and knock them down to the canvas. It makes this game a much harder call for me from a prediction standpoint. Alex, do you know what you're going to do from a prediction standpoint?
Nah, not yet. I mean, I think if I had, we don't have to do it today, do we?
No.
When are those going to be due? Or is it tomorrow?
We'll do the Prize Pick show on Thursday, like normal.
I just wasn't sure with the Friday night, but I guess, yeah. If I had to pick now, I think I'd pick Ohio State to win by like 4 points, some kind of 27-31 game or something. I'm still trying to figure out a way I could just I don't know whether it's just recency bias for me too. I mean, everything you just said makes sense, Catch. Everything that
Anwar said though makes sense too. Like there's a lot of things I think that are existing as truths at the same time.
Yeah, it's like the thing I think about. Okay, well, Jeremiah Smith, is it just he's gotten better throughout the year and now he's kind of coming to his own and he's really escalating at the end of the season the way that these awesome like Odell Beckham rookie season. Do you remember that?
No, I remember. I'm a Cowboys fan.
Yeah. Okay. So like by the end of the season, you got this guy that's unstoppable, right? And or is it just like if you just look at the statistical, if you look at the statistical rankings of the defenses versus passing games, like the teams that have been good against that, he's kind of had. He hasn't had these big games versus those teams, right? Texas is one of those. It's like, so all these kind of countervailing narratives, it does, man. It makes it super hard for me. I think that there's a whole lot to be. I'm about to write about this because I'm finishing the offensive line grades finally, and
well, it shouldn't have taken long to grade the offense. They were only on the field for like 13 snaps.
it was a little more than that, but certainly that defense.
You went right through the first quarter.
That dude, the first quarter was like 5 snaps.
It's
crazy.
And the third was 6.
Yeah,
this was your dream on offense.
Yeah, but it came during a weird time because you got the weekend in between and stuff. So anyway, I think getting Cam Williams back this week, if they do get him back, it looked to me in practice like that guy will be back. I'm gonna show how good Goosby's been. It's like with Goosby, the thing about him in a nutshell, it's like as far as pass protection right now, I think I haven't run the exact numbers yet. I think he's about as good as Cam Williams as far as a pass protector. Right, there is much more of a difference between how good he is versus the run because Cam is good in pass protection, but he's better. He's better at run stuff. And so I think that bringing him back is important. And I think having Isaiah Bond back is important. I'm not sure if
Tracy asks this as a super chat for $2. Is Bond 100% healthy? Go to wide receiver Bond or Golden. Real quick, Anwar,
Bond doesn't need to be the go-to receiver though if he's 100% healthy. It's what he does to make the defense account for him that is really.
That's why they keep playing him. You have to account for him at all times, even in a wheelchair. But boy, if you told me that they were getting Isaiah Bond from the Florida game or pre-OU, I'd take Texas to win this game. Like I wouldn't even blink. I would just say that is the Texas offense that can go nuclear.
Well, Anwar will get to see him in probably some kind of 3 seconds of practice that they give you guys in Dallas, I'm sure. But
no, we're not getting that. I think that was it.
Okay,
is it for the week.
I mean, dude, Bond looked like Bond to me, and he hasn't looked like Bond, period. For a long time. Whenever he was running drills, you walked out there, it was like all was right in the world, man. You got 7, you got 0 at slot, you got 2, and they're like he's out there looking like Isaiah Bond. So I don't know. Maybe he's not healthy, and they just kind of pulled the rug over our eyes and told him to act healthy as he can for 5 minutes or whatever. But from what I saw,
a dirty football player. If I played for Ohio State, I would just roll that guy's ankle if I could. I would be like, that guy. If he's not on the field, they're not as good. So, like, what if I accidentally just fall on him?
Yeah. Well, I think having those 2 guys back, that's something else that can't be taken into accounted for. I don't think Texas playing the underdog narrative can be taken into account. I don't know what the home field advantage kind of thing feels like as far as that. But here's the thing, though, Catch. It's like, if for anybody saying this is just a lock for Ohio State, they've been a Jekyll and Hyde team too. Ryan Day was getting death threats last year on his family. You know what I mean? The people
they were literally talking about firing him last week.
What are we like? I mean, I don't think that this is, a completely unstoppable force. Does it seem like it's going to be the biggest challenge to date? Yeah. But it's like we started out saying, man, we started out the season saying these are probably the two best rosters in college football.
Along with Georgia. Oscar, speaking of things where you could just have a bunch of truths that all exist in the same universe at the same time and not be mutually exclusive. Oscar says you can't for $9.99. Thank you, Oscar. You can't convince me after 6 years and 4 straight losses to Michigan. This time it's finally clicked for Ryan Day. Week 13 into a season. That bona fide big game loser is in there somewhere. Oscar, that might be my favorite super chat of yours from the week so far. Thank you. Then there's that. It's a massive moment for both of these head coaches. Onward, do you, in a Ryan Day versus Steve Sarkisian game day matchup, like how do you even view that?
Oh gosh, I mean, this is tough.
Before you answer, the look on your face as I ask that question, I've never seen you make a more consternated, like, oh God, I don't even like you gave an answer honestly before giving an answer.
Well, I mean, what are we talking about? Like Sark just got his first bowl win. Just what was it against Arizona State? Since he's been at Texas. That's his first bowl victory, right? So yeah, because he had the loss against Washington, 2 losses against Washington. So that was it. So there was nothing in year 1, 2 losses against Washington, and then Arizona State happened. So that's his first bowl win. So I don't know. That's why I'm like, really? How do I measure a guy who's 1-2 in bowl games at Texas?
Is it a push? Or does somebody have an edge? Even if when Jason, if you're wondering, Jason working diligently in San Antonio at a bowl game and not sick like I was last week or anything like that.
Some people watch my morning show and they would know that what Jason was doing. I just want to throw it out there.
That too.
Jason was a guest on my show this morning.
Oh, well, because it's Tuesday.
Yes. So, yeah.
And he did say in the message last night, I'm going to do Onwar's show at 9:00 and I'm not going to be on the modcast. It was everything that happened after that is what I forgot. But when Jason does his matchups, if he was doing the coaches, is it even, or does one of these guys have like a 1-star matchup, like advantage over the other? Because I think Texas fans are going to go on tilt if we come out of this show telling them that Ryan Day and Steve Sarkisian as game day coaches are a push, because I don't think they respect Ryan Day. Look at Oscar. Oscar's like, that guy's in there to screw it up somewhere. Well, we don't think that about Sark, do we?
Well, I think there's the thing to think about too. It's like, I mean, it doesn't always apply to all situations. It was like, I mean, don't you remember that they would call Bob Stoops like big game bull flop Bob, but not versus Texas. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
Well,
I think
just for clarity.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, I want to ask
by the way, I gotta, if I include the first round game and the Peach Bowl, then that would put Sark at 2-2 in bowl.
Is the first game a bowl game though? It's just a playoff game.
It's a playoff game. It was the Peach Bowl, right?
No, the one.
No.
Oh, was the first one not called a bowl? I guess it was.
It's the opening round playoff game.
So how do we do? Are we going?
That should start counting. That should start counting as a bowl.
He didn't get a trophy for that. He got a trophy for winning the bowl. They look,
but he got the
confetti and all that shit.
Oh, I mean, but it's a postseason non-championship football game.
Well, look, I'm okay with next year consolidating all of the bowl games, and that if it's your 5 versus 12 seed next year, call it the Alamo Bowl.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be in San Antonio, but you can give them a bowl trophy.
Yeah.
Because they were kind of.
I feel like as we move forward into the future with the 12-game playoff, I think that the mainstream norm will be to start considering round one playoff games as they should be going into
Moving
your bowl
forward, no
postseason
one's bowl record's going to mean shit. The only thing that's going to matter is what is your
postseason
playoff
record. Right.
So he's 2-2 in the postseason at Texas. He's got the Alamo
He's
Bowl
2-1 as a playoff coach, though.
Okay, well, that's just still postseasons because now we're getting into asterisks, right? So
No, that's his record in NCAA playoff games.
So 2-1.
And Ryan
Day
Day's not 2-1. He's like sub 500. I don't know. I'm trying to make a case. I'm trying to give Sark a 1-star advantage over Ryan Day on the sidelines on Saturday, but I don't feel like I'm making a successful case. So onward, I'm going to do something that I never do. I'm going to cry uncle to Unk.
Oh, well, as Costanza would say, my work here is done. I'm out.
And guys, that is it for today's
That's it for today's show.
Yeah.
Hey, 1043. Go ahead and play 1043 for your lotto numbers. Put that in there in your pick fours or whatever the hell you do. Go ahead and do that. The catch, the thing is just it's for me. If I just go postseason, it's really tough. Right now, but Sark obviously he's Clemson, Arizona State, like he's winning the games. So there is that. It's a tough one. It's probably a coin toss right now. I know Texas would like to say Ryan Day sucks, and he doesn't suck, right? He doesn't suck. He hasn't achieved a certain amount. He's followed Urban Meyer. So yes, anything past that would kind of suck.
This is the hottest. I was gonna let you have the final word. I'm not. I'm going to let Bobby Hansen have the final word.
Oh, jeez.
That is the hottest, scorching white, the surface of the sun hot take of the week.
It's funny, man. My daughter told me yesterday that was the dream that she had the night before last. She was saying, I had this dream, this awful dream that Texas won by a field goal versus Ohio State, and then she's like, and then we got to the national championship and played Notre Dame and lost. I was like, well, that's a bad dream.
Wow, so she doesn't have monsters or goblins or anything like that.
Well, he didn't say that. Maybe Texas lost because a monster came out of
you never know. Yeah,
and swallowed up Quinn Ewers. By the way, I think Jason's got a good buddy named Bobby Hansen. So if that's Jason's friend. Hello, Bobby Hansen. Hello to Bobby, nonetheless. But
you talk about recency bias. I mean, we weren't saying that about Notre Dame at the beginning of the season. So things have definitely changed.
By the way, Bowles had a comment from Del Conte yesterday about the Sark coaching in the NFL thing. Del Conte, it's hard to read. Like, what does someone's tone sound like when you're reading their remarks? Sound like he was a little edgy about it, though.
What was the quote?
I'll pull it up real quick. But it was like, this is just somebody trying to start something. He was pissed about the timing of it. Like, this should not be coming up. But again, like I'm putting my tone. Let me find the exact quote. Here it is. Texas Athletic Director Chris Del Conte scoffs at reports by ESPN, NBC that NFL teams will come after Steve Sarkisian. Quote, "We've got a game to play. I'm not going to comment. Somebody's just creating fodder before our biggest game. That's stupid." End quote. Okay.
Gosh, he's on edge.
That's what I was like, okay, Del Conte.
I don't see the joke in that one. So it sounds like he was a little pissy. That it's not what Schefter, first of all, and I don't know what Alex's opinions of Adam Schefter is, but I mean, Schefter is pretty much the gold standard as relates to reporting. I mean, like if Schefter's almost like TMZ. Like if Schefter reports that you're dead, I'm like, oh snap, I must be dead. Like it's usually pretty damn accurate. Now,
didn't he report something in politics randomly? Like every once in a while, Schefter.
Sometimes he'll get an NBA nugget too.
Every once in a while, he'll literally break world news.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh well, Schefter, okay.
Yeah, I mean he's pretty damn good. Now, what he said was teams would contact. And inquire about Sark. I mean, he didn't say Sark was leaving.
Yeah.
He just said they were inquire. So there's nothing wrong, I don't think, with anything that he reported. If you're a team and you're an NFL team that has if you're the Jaguars, you would hope that somebody freaking makes a call just to see. Now he may say no, but it's not under the it's not trash.
That's
like
not somebody trying to just. Adam Schefter didn't try to. Texas playing in a semifinal. I'm a big Ohio State fan. Let me try to create a story. Like
correct. It was in the timing was this is the last week of the NFL regular season. Monday was going to come around where everyone was going to get fired, and so the question was, hey, as all these coaches are getting fired or in the hot seat, who are some potential candidates to be replacements?
Yeah, so we heard the Ben Johnson, Liam Cohen. There's some people sniffing around Steve Sarkisian. There's they're looking at Aaron Glenn, and he's just like, hold on, which of those names doesn't sound like the other? And it's Sark, and I'll agree with Anwar that it's like Shefty puts it out there, man. Like he doesn't miss. Now he's getting a little older now to where like the volume isn't quite the same, and he doesn't do like the late night 2 a.m. blasts of all the news coming in. It's like Ian Rappaport sort of taking over that mantle, it feels like. But Rappaport's had some rap sheets had some misses, whereas Schefter, it's really hard to think about his. If Schefter says it or if Jay Glazer says it, even though the volume is not as high as Rap Sheet these days, if one of those guys says it, it's true. So it's like, I mean, those guys are really well sourced, and they always check things, and so it's clear that there's something to it. It's just
what's weird about it is that like this is what you want. Hey, we're having so much success that our head coaches wanted, and like they're dealing with this at Notre Dame this week. Notre Dame won a playoff game; they're in the semifinals, and now you're hearing whispers like, "Hey, there could be NFL teams that are interested in Freeman." And it's like, okay, well, yeah, that's what happens when Matt Brown first started winning at Texas. It was like, oh, is Red McCombs going to hire him with the Vikings? Are there NFL teams that could lure? Like Bob Stoops had it happen with him. Like when you're really good at your job,
Lincoln Riley,
people reach out to you. Like that's part of being successful. So and look, Chris Del Conte is at Texas because a big job opened up, and like, I bet when he was at TCU and people were like, Chris Del Conte could be up for the USC job or the Texas job. It was like, that's just fodder. No, like it's natural. Anyway, guys, we got to go. We got House Divided coming up in a little bit more than an hour. The fellas here, we have a meeting, staff meeting at 11. It's been Tuesday. It is the Orange Bloods Modcast. It is brought to you by.
There was a super chat that came in, Justin.
Did I miss something? Oh, $5. If Baxter was healthy, would Texas feature between the tackle running inside zone more than they currently do?
No, I think that Sark. He's built. I think a lot of the identity of this offense off of the outside zone game. I think they would still be running a lot of outside zone, maybe a little bit more inside zone. There was just a little more inside zone and power stuff in this game as they were just trying to mix things up versus Arizona State. But I do think that the offense was built from the beginning to be based off of the outside zone. Yeah,
I agree. And I think, let's not especially considering the injury he has to get better than. By the way, it's the Derek Williams injury. It was interesting. The coaches were like, man, that's a major injury he's coming back from. I wonder just how bad that knee was when we start thinking about next year and the lineup and things like that. But, the thing with CJ is like, we still have to find out if he's a plus college player. So if he was healthy, one of the things we would have found out this season is, hey, was he justifiably a national top 50 guy, or is he a running back that is 5 yards a carry and nothing truly special? Like, I don't know. Like, Justin, you're not doing that, but I'm just saying, let's not do that thing where in the offseason we make CJ Baxter some sort of beast as a running back that he's not yet proven himself at the collegiate level. He and I and us as a group were kind of robbed. Like, what was the real CJ Baxter? We didn't get a chance to find out this year. It was really disappointing.
Go to the pinned stuff, Catch. There's 2 more super chats that came in.
Okay. Well, the Google Scholar says, let's not act like Will Howard is a sure thing. And there's that. When pushed yesterday, Onward did admit he'll take Quinn Ewers over Will Howard, who's not beaten Texas.
Easily.
And Tracy asked for $2. Why does the CFP round 1 count towards, or what does it count towards? Your playoff record, not your bowl record. It wasn't a bowl game. I mean, I'll email John and ask him, but it wasn't a bowl game. Saturday or Friday's a bowl game, and last Saturday was a bowl game, but the first game wasn't a bowl game. It was a playoff game. The good news is, in 5 years from now, no one's ever going to mention bowl records. They're just going to mention what is your record in the playoff. So we just need some time to build up bowl records. That's a problem that Onward and I got into. It was like, well, technically Sark is 2-1, and Ryan Day's played in a bunch of semifinals that he hasn't won up until this year. Now he's won 2 games. Anyway, guys, we got to go. We're caught up on Super Chats. Thanks for hanging out with us. Like, comment, subscribe to the page. Again, Tracy, hold on. Let me just do that. Y'all just ignore me. Thanks to Daily and Black, sponsor of the Modcast. And again, if you have storm damage and need to, sue to make things right and get your payoff from insurance companies, like, let Daily and Black do all the hard work for you. They win. They're fantastic. They are strong supporters of Texas athletics and Orange Bloods Live. So, like, if you're in the need for that, there's only one person to go to. It is Daily and Black. For myself, for Alex, for Anwar, for Jason, who's in San Antonio, working hard. We'll see you guys either later today on other shows or the next Modcast next week, when Texas might be getting ready for, dare I say, a national championship game against Notre Dame that Alex's daughter has dreamed up and has Texas losing.